Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for our cash tag segment. For that, let's bring in Landon Swan. He's a co-founder at Likefolio. Welcome back to the show, Landon.
Thank you. Happy Monday, guys.
Happy Monday to you. Happy Monday to DraftKings investors, because the stock's had a spectacular run over the last 12 months. Landon, what kind of data do you guys have on this one? Because it seems like about a year and a half, 2 years ago, all these online gambling sites were struggling because it cost so much money to acquire. Gambling wasn't across in many states yet. That continues to ramp up here a little bit, but it seems like everything's turned over the last year.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, I think there's 38 states plus D.C. that have it legalized. 6 are pending. So there's a few stragglers out there, but it's not going to be long before we've basically got nationwide betting on sports, which, I think is fantastic for this industry for sure. And this March Madness was a big one. I mean, they're estimating about $2.7 billion bet on the NCAA tournament, men and women, which, normally the women's not a factor, but it's really gaining momentum this year, the Caitlin Clark effect. Women's bets are up about 3x over the prior year. So a lot more is being bet this year. In fact, if you add up all the tournament bets, it's about double what the Super Bowl is. And that's one game versus, 63 games. But still, it's pretty interesting to see that this time of the year is so important for these companies. And yeah, DraftKings doing well. I mean, last quarter, the revenue was up 57%, up to 790 million. Their monthly active bettors was up 40%. So up to 2.3 million. So they're getting a lot of action. I mean, they're definitely, converting on that. They're justifying this increase of about 150% on a year-over-year basis. When we look at, the mentions of this company, you can see that for quite a while the mentions were, I guess you could say higher than the stock price if you put them on the same chart, even though they're different axes. You can kind of see that there was a little bit of a discrepancy there. They've lined up a little bit more. They're both moving north at the same pace. And so you could justify this price where it's at. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is when you look at the web mentions, not web mentions, web visits. So if you look at the web data of DraftKings versus FanDuel, it gives a little bit of a concern, because for a long time, DraftKings was leading that lighter blue, that top bar, but right at the end there, they actually cross and FanDuel takes over. So web visits for DraftKings are off by about 11% year over year, whereas FanDuel's up 25%. So they're getting, FanDuel's kind of taking it to them just a little bit. They do have a higher market share. People are talking about, FanDuel's better because they're faster on their payouts. They have different, more promotional variety. They have better live betting. When it comes to depositing, they're all the same, except for FanDuel also has this thing called Pay Near Me, where you can walk into a 7-Eleven or CVS, give them cash, and then it goes into your account. DraftKings doesn't have that yet. We'll see if they add it. But there's a little bit of I guess the market, or the consumer market seems to favor FanDuel a little bit here. I will say this is rising tide lifting all boats. Everything seems to be going well for both companies, but between the two, especially when you look at the stock performance over the last year, FanDuel's, Flutter is, I think it's up 6% year over year. It's not great. They have a lot of other properties, but still, DraftKings, when you compare that to FanDuel, it starts to look a little bit more expensive. So justified based on the data, but maybe, if you're thinking about the two, I might lean towards FanDuel and Flutter.
Landon, looking at the entirety of these, DraftKings just bought a lottery company a short while ago for $750 million. It's called Jackpocket, I guess. So they're going to get in the lottery. They expect by 2026 crazy numbers in terms of revenue and profits from these things. But right at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned California, Florida, Texas. 3 states that don't have legalized online gambling. That's the next really primary driver for these names, right? They got to get in those big states. Now, they think Texas will come in 2025. They think California and Florida will in 26. That's what they seem to be planning on. But these companies, Tom was right. They had a little dip in their history, but they seem to be flying right now and adding more unique products with lottery now.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be you watch your favorite game. You'd say, all right, home team's favored by 6. and the money line's minus 130. You decide between you give it up 6 points or laying a little extra money. Now they've got an insane number of bets that you can bet on. I mean, a certain player to hit, how many threes are they going to hit? Is the first play of the game going to be a pass or a run? I mean, you can bet on just about anything. And when you add in the live sports action, I mean, now you're watching a game, it goes to commercial, and you got a whole slew of new bets coming on. So for an action junkie, this is a great time to be alive. I mean, this is where it's at. But you're right. I mean, those 3 states have to come along. Obviously, that's a huge percentage of the population. You could say 38 states plus DC, but it's not quite 76%, right? You got those big states that we're waiting on. So I think everyone knows that they're coming. I mean, the tax revenue is just such a no-brainer for these states. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when. And then really it's just, who can grab the customers for the cheaper price and keep them. That's the key, is who can keep them. Because once you're in, I mean, it's not hard to move from one to the other, but you get used to it. You've got it on your phone. You just pull up the app and you go. You're not going to be bouncing around. Most people don't bounce around back and forth depending on the line or the promotions, things like that. So really you're trying to grab these customers and hold on to them. And who can do that more quickly, I think, is the key. And that's why customer acquisition costs are so high. They know that, and they have to pay up for these customers. So it's interesting to see the competition between these two, especially. And, we'll see what the future holds. But right now, DraftKings is justified but expensive when you compare it to FanDuel and Flutter.
When you guys look at this data, Landon, especially on these gambling stocks, because Vegas casinos and Macau, we always talk about the big companies like Wynn and Las Vegas Sands. They don't do well when the economy's not doing well. We've got markets at or near all-time highs, home prices rising, wages going up. So it's a good time for everybody in this type of environment if people are betting, right? Trading. The markets are at or near record highs. Is that a concern moving forward?
I've seen both sides of that. I've seen data that says it's a pretty recession-proof environment, but certainly if you have more money, if your stocks are doing well, if your Bitcoin's up, you're more likely to bet a little bit more on the games. I wouldn't say it's as strong as something like alcohol sales, but I do think that there's a little bit of defensive nature in it, in that it's just an entertainment pastime that it can be somewhat addictive, and so it's a good business to be in. Obviously, the better the economy is going, the more money people have in their pockets, the more likely they are to gamble and bet on these types of things. So it's a little bit of a concern. I think just about every industry is rooting for things to go well. But I'd take the other side and say that maybe this one is a little bit more defensive. Again, up is better for everyone, but they might be able to weather things just a little bit better. But when you start talking about these high customer acquisition costs, then, things get a little bit different. If you're just, sitting there taking bets as people walk in the door, that's different, but you got to get them in the door, and that can be very expensive.
All right, Landon, final. Who do you like tonight? Purdue's getting 6.5.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, UConn seems to just be unstoppable. I mean, it's really incredible to watch them play. And so, I might, I think UConn money line's a safe bet. 6.5 seems like a pretty good spread, though. That's a tough one to bet.
Control room, mute his microphone. Mute him.
I want my Boilers to win this, Landon. We need to not turn the ball over. I think that's going to be the key, I think, moving forward. All right, great stuff. Great data, as always. Bad pick, though, on the win. Appreciate it, Landon.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Good luck tonight.
All right, Landon Swan, co-founder at Likefolio, breaking that.
I don't think he meant that.
I don't think he did either.
I don't think that was sincere.
And if he's betting against Purdue, he's really lying. Okay, Kev.